All right, let's just jump right into it. Welcome to our explainer of the official VEX IQ Robotics competition manual for the 2026-2027 season, Level Up. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or, stepping up to the field for the absolute first time, mastering the game really begins right here. A lot of people think the game manual is just this boring list of things you can't do, but actually, scratch that, it's the ultimate puzzle. It's the puzzle every single team has to solve. Today, we're going to unpack the core mechanics, the constraints, and all those hidden strategies embedded deep in the rules so your team can hit the ground running with a massive competitive edge.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the ultimate rulebook, welcome to Level Up, mapping the field, the update schedule, and finally, the official Q&A system. Let's get into it.
Section 1, the ultimate rulebook.
The fundamental philosophy of this document is actually completely misunderstood by a lot of rookie teams. This manual, it's a strict system of constraints designed to test your engineering skills. It gives you the binding rules, it's your technical reference, and it is the absolute primary source of truth for the entire season. But here's the kicker. What it does not do is tell you how to play. It is definitely not a strategy guide, and there's no way it's a step-by-step instruction set for building the perfect robot. The Game Design Committee purposely gave us boundaries, and your job as an engineering team is to innovate right up to those boundaries. This is honestly where you find your biggest strategic advantage. If a strategy isn't explicitly prohibited by these rules, well, it's generally considered legal. If the manual doesn't explicitly say, that you can't build a robot that expands to 3 times its starting size in the last 10 seconds of a match, then you absolutely can. That exact kind of creative problem solving is what this rulebook is begging you to do.
Moving right along to Section 2, welcome to Level Up. So teams are going to compete in 2 very, very different ways this season, and your robot has got to be ready for both. First up, we have the teamwork match. This is a crazy, fast-paced, 60-second cooperative sprint where you form a temporary alliance with another team's robot to rack up as many points as possible together. This takes intense adaptability. One match, you might be paired with a robot that perfectly complements your build, and the next, you might have to pivot your entire strategy on the fly to cover for a partner's distinct weaknesses. Then, on the flip side, you've got robot skills matches. This is it, the ultimate test of your machine's raw potential, completely solo. No alliance partner to lean on, it's just your robot maximizing the score either through driver control or completely autonomous, pre-programmed coding runs. To be truly elite, you're going to have to engineer a machine that absolutely dominates in both of these wildly different scenarios.
Let's talk scoring. The primary objects this year are beanbags, and here is a super important detail. There are exactly 38 beanbags on the entire field. That breaks down to 16 blue, 16 red, and 6 yellow. Now, 2 of those yellow ones are actually preloads, which just means each robot gets to hold one right as the buzzer sounds. The strategic implications of that math, they are massive. Because there are only 38 bags in the whole game, resource starvation is a very real threat as the clock ticks down. Every single bag matters. You really can't afford to just ignore any of them, and your pathing strategy has to guarantee you're scooping up these scarce resources before time runs out.
Now, take a look at this constraint because it is absolutely crucial. Possession is strictly limited to 1 single beanbag at a time. Let that sink in for a second. Your robot can only hold 1 beanbag at any given moment. That fundamentally flips how you have to approach your robot design this year. It totally invalidates those classic bulldozer designs that just shove massive piles of game pieces across the map. And those hopper robots from past seasons that gobble up a dozen items before driving to the goal, yeah, those are dead too. This strict 1-bag limit forces some incredibly intense, hyper-efficient pathfinding. You and your alliance partner are going to be constantly crunching the numbers to find the absolute fastest routes to pick up and drop off individual items, cutting out literally every wasted inch of movement.
All right, Section 3, mapping the field.
When we look at the 6x8-foot playing field in its starting setup, you realize the environment itself is a massive challenge. The arena is just as much an obstacle as it is an opportunity to score. You've got these wide paths if you want pure speed, but there are also super distinct, really narrow shortcuts scattered all over the board. And since most of your beanbags have to travel practically all the way across the field to get to their goals, your team has a huge season-defining choice to make right out of the gate. Are you going to build a slender, highly agile robot that can zip right through that chaotic center traffic? Or are you going to engineer a wider, incredibly fast rover that sticks to the safe outside lanes, going all in on top speed over maneuverability? It's a really tough call.
And all those single beanbags have very specific places they need to go. We've got the stepped pyramid goals, the elevated L4 goals, and the ground level floor goals.
Naturally, the higher you go, the more points you get. It's a classic risk versus reward trade-off. Do you dedicate precious weight and space on your robot to build a complex lift for that top goal? Maybe. But hey, we can't forget about the load zones sitting right at the edges of the field. That is where you have to manually feed the remaining beanbags into the game mid-match. Coordination with your partner here is absolutely critical. Both of you are going to be scrambling toward those edges, and man, the absolute last thing you want is two robots bottlenecking in the corner, crashing into each other, and burning precious seconds trying to reach the exact same entry point.
Which brings us to Section 4, the update schedule.
Okay, this timeline right here is basically your survival guide for the early season. The Game Design Committee pushes out major and minor rule updates on a totally set schedule, and it's always on Thursdays. Version 0.1 gives you the baseline, right? But then the Q&A officially opens in May, which basically guarantees we'll see some minor updates rolling out in June, leading up to a massive version 1.0 drop in July once the community starts weighing in. If you want to stay competitive, you have to stay updated. Seriously, mark your calendars for those Thursdays. Because honestly, a sudden rule tweak on a random Thursday afternoon could instantly validate this brilliant mechanism you just sketched out, or it could completely wreck a concept your team just spent all week building.
So you absolutely have to make sure your team is working off the latest version. Now, don't panic. When a new update drops, there's usually a standard 7-day grace period before it actually hits official events. They do that to ensure fairness, so the rug doesn't get pulled out from under you the night before a huge tournament. But here is the absolute most important thing to remember: the hierarchy of the rules. I don't care how totally convinced you are by some intense YouTube breakdown or a fiercely debated Reddit thread or even some translated forum post you dug up at 2 in the morning. The most recent English PDF of the game manual is the supreme, absolute law of the land. End of story.
And finally, Section 5, the official Q&A system. Like we mentioned earlier, if the manual doesn't explicitly prohibit a strategy, it's usually fair game. But let's say your team cooks up this incredibly clever, borderline genius strategy, and you need undeniable proof that it's legal before you commit 3 weeks to building it. That is exactly when you must consult the official Q&A system. This isn't just some random community message board, folks. It is literally an extension of the game manual itself. It is legally binding for the competition, and it is the only, and I mean only, acceptable source for official rulings outside of the actual printed manual. To use this direct hotline to the game's creators, you really need to follow these exact steps. Step 1, and please drill this into your team's heads, actually read the entire manual first. The committee gets dozens of questions every single week that are already clearly answered on like page 4. Don't be that team. Step 2, search the existing Q&A to make sure someone else hasn't already asked your exact question. Step 3, always quote the specific rule number you're confused about so they know exactly what you're looking at. And step 4, keep it to one single question per thread. If you stick to this formula, you're pretty much guaranteed a clear, quick, and official answer. But let's be absolutely crystal clear about what the Q&A is not for. The Game Design Committee cannot and will not overrule a head referee's decision at an event. The Q&A system is completely meant for proactive rules clarification while you are designing and practicing. It is definitely not some Supreme Court where you can appeal a referee's call after the match is already over. When you are at a tournament, the head referee is the final judge. Waving a printed-out Q&A post in the air after the buzzer sounds, that is not going to reverse a score or change the outcome of your match. So, you know the constraints. You've mapped out the arena. Those 38 bean bags are just sitting there waiting for a solution. The only question now is, will your team play it safe and build something totally traditional, or are you going to engineer a design that completely breaks the meta? How will your team choose to level up this season?